It's good evening, and I welcome you all to the Africa ELTA March Webinar. I am so delighted to have every one of you join us today for this webinar. And most especially, I'm grateful to our presenter for today who has been here waiting for the time to clock. So I'm here with Anestin, and I'm so happy about today's webinar because of the topic. She'll be taking us on the topic titled, How Can We Be Reflective Practitioners? That is really an interesting topic for educators. So, without wasting further time, I would quickly like to read out her bio, then hand over to her. Anestin Chi is a multiple award winning Cameroonian teacher and French language teacher. She is a language consultant and a teacher educator. She is passionate about teachers' professional development and has invested extensively in supporting teachers in Cameroon, in particular, and sub Saharan Africa in general. She has amplified local voices while advocating for decentered practices in ELT. Her research interests include pre and in service teacher training, teacher expertise, and professional development. She is also the founder of We Connect, a not for profit organization committed to fostering educational connections at local and global levels through connecting classroom projects, intercultural link ups, and international exchange partnerships. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my utmost delight to hand over to Anestin Chi to lead us on in our webinar for today. Over to you, Aniston. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much, Blessing. Good evening, distinguished colleagues from across Africa. Thank you for joining us in this webinar. We are so very delighted to have you, and we hope to learn and share and learn from your own experience as we discuss how we can become reflective practitioners. So I'm Anestin Chi, Blessing did mention already, and I'm happy to be leading the conversation. So today we will be discussing what reflective practice is, why we should engage in reflective practice, and how we can become reflective practitioners. In discussing the how, we'll be looking at processes we could leverage as well as the tools we may use to engage in reflective practice. So let's get started. I'd like you to tell me who is a reflective practitioner. What does it mean to you? Who is a reflective practitioner? Please, if you share your answers in the chat, I'll be delighted to read them. Thank you. I want to get people on their keyboards or perhaps trying to imagine who a reflective practitioner is. Great. So I see the first response from Ratabile. A reflective practitioner is a teacher who looks back and reflects on how and what he or she is teaching. That's a very lovely answer. Thank you, Ratabile, for sharing. Another answer from, okay, I think that's just Ratabile that came in twice. Thank you. Let's see what others have to say. A key word in Ratabile's answer is looking back, reflecting on what he or she is teaching. So looking back and reflecting. Very important words. If you're joining us, please tell us who a reflective practitioner is. Yeah, lovely. Oh, another answer from, sorry, the name just says iPhone. So it's a teacher who critically analyzes his own teaching, critically analyzes. That's great. Nabil says someone who always evaluates actions and plans for the future. Excellent. Blessing says someone who analyzes their performance for improvement. Great, wonderful answers. And now I saw a lot of looking back, reflecting, analyzing critically in order to improve. So, reflecting, of course, will mean that there's some form of reflective practice. So, the next question is, what does reflecting mean to you? When you say someone who looks back and reflect, what does it mean? And when you say someone who engages in reflective practice, what does reflective practice mean to you? Again, please share your answers via chat. Okay, so I see an answer coming through. Ratabile says, thinking seriously and analytically about her work. Great. Ekane Kingsley says, a teacher who prepares lessons with the learners in mind. So perhaps using a learner-centered approach or being a learner-centered teacher. That's Ekane from Cameroon. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Okay. And Nabil says, a continuous goal-oriented practice. Lovely. Very brilliant answers from your end. So well done. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. So let's look at what reflective practice entails. And because it's a reflective practice, engaging in reflective practice that makes us reflective practitioners. So what does reflective practice in itself entails? And I see one more answer coming in through the chat. iPhone says it is an active process. And of course, I do agree with you that reflective practice is an active process, but what form of process is it that is active? So reflective practice simply means learning from our own experiences instead of relying on some expert lectures, which may not be appropriate for our own context, for our specific classroom realities. With the reflective practice, we leverage our own experiences to learn. So learning from our own experiences, taking into account our reality, our context, the conditions in our classroom to be able to improve our teaching. So learning from our own professional experiences will mean that we gather data about our teaching. So we look back, Ratabile did mention, looking back at your teaching. You look back at your teaching and you gather data by looking at what worked, what didn't really work as much as you would have loved it to, and interpreting those data and then trying to think critically, Nabil did say, analyzing to be able to implement change, improve on your teaching, as Blessing did mention. So that will be reflective practice. Instead of reading what other people have written, which may not be compatible with your own reality, or rely on some lectures, best practices that are, I usually ask, best for whom, according to who, and for whose condition. So I really do not believe in the concept of best practices. I think the concept of best practice is individual. It should be individualized to the teacher's context. So instead of relying on those best practices that may not be context appropriate, we learn from our own professional experience by observing our classroom, our own teaching, looking at what happened and trying to interpret what happened or doesn't happen in our classroom and reflecting on that information to improve our teaching. Great. So, why should we go through the pain of learning from our own professional experience? Why should we go through the pain of looking at that teaching, analyzing it, and trying to why? So why should you, as a teacher, be a reflective practitioner? Again, I invite you to share your answers via chat. So I'm sure people are getting on their keyboards, and we should be seeing some interesting responses in the chat in a few minutes. But if you think about yourself, why should you engage in the process of looking back at your teaching critically and reflecting on it? Why should you go through that pain? Great. So our first answer is yes. From dancing, it helps make changes for more effective learning. I can't agree more. Thank you, Danson, for sharing. So Danson wants to be a reflective practitioner in order to implement changes. Ratabile it helps her to improve her teaching. Great. And Nabil says it helps her to grow professionally and make changes in students' life. Wonderful. Kingsley says to keep improving and updating our methods. Great, lovely, and I can't agree more with all of these answers. Really brilliant. So, of course, you've mentioned some of these reasons. It makes you to be an active partaker of your own professional development. Professional development is not passive, it's an active process. I think Nabil did mention already, or the person with iPhone rather did mention in the chat that it was an active process. And so you need to be an active agent in that process. If you do not actively contribute, then you're going to plateau. So reflective practice helps you to actively contribute to your own professional development. You are actively contributing because you're making use of your own knowledge, of your circumstances, and you are using the insights from those circumstances and your readings to improve, which is very different from attending a workshop and a webinar. Also, reflective practice helps you to understand your current teaching. In my native language, we say you only know where you're headed to from the start point. So if you really don't know the start point, it's difficult to determine the destination. So it helps you to understand your current teaching practice. And why should you understand your current teaching practice? Because understanding your current teaching practice helps to shape your future teaching practice. So once you understand your current teaching practice, you're able to reflect on it, then you can reshape your future practice by innovating, by implementing those changes, and by making those improvements Blessing did mention. And because you're making bits of improvement, reflective practice will help you to keep making those improvements continuously. And so it's a cycle of improvement, and which means you are improving on your teaching practice, you're becoming a better teacher, and your learners are becoming high achievers. So they are performing better as your practice improves. Great. So let's talk a bit about the reflective process. We want to be reflective practitioners. Yes, but how do we become reflective practitioners? What processes can we use to become reflective practitioners? There are many processes we could leverage, but one that has stood the test of time, according to me, is James' reflective cycle, which is a 6-step reflection process. So we are going to be looking at each step within this process. How do we engage in reflective practice? So James says to engage in reflective practice, you need to start by noticing a situation in your classroom. So you have an experience in your classroom. It could be a critical incident. It could just be about a lesson you taught. You want to notice it. And you start by describing that event carefully and objectively. So you want to think about if it's the vocabulary lesson you taught today, what happened during the lesson? Who was involved in what part, which students contributed, which students did not contribute. Why do you think they did not contribute? So you want to detail the experience the way you've lived it. So describing the details objectively. So just saying what happened, the way you experience it without being judgmental at this point. And once you have done that, then you can move on to describe your feelings and your thoughts. That's where you add some bit of subjectivity. If you're talking about that vocabulary lesson, how did you feel? Did you feel it went well? If it was a critical incident, what thoughts did it provoke? What feelings when it at the time it happened and even after? So you want to analyze those feelings and those thoughts because they will help you to understand the context better. And once you have done that, then you can move on to evaluating. So first, you have to notice the incident, detail the incident, describe it, then share your thoughts and feelings about the events surrounding that situation, and then try to do an assessment. If it's your vocabulary lesson, yeah, you notice the lesson. What happened? Maybe just two students were responding, maybe just the stronger students. Most of the class was passive. How did you feel? Were you happy? Did you feel the students were happy? Were they following? And then you want to consider, in your opinion, did the lesson go well? Yes, what part of it went well? Why do you think that part went well? Because of course some bits of the lesson might have gone well, other bits not so well. So which part of the lesson didn't go well? Why did it not go well? Was it the instruction you were giving? Was it when you were giving instruction? Was it when the learners were on the task? Was it learners' response? Was it your ability to deal with feedback? So which part didn't go well? Why didn't it go well? You may want to look at those. And once you're done with that evaluation, then you do an analysis of the situation. So, an analysis will mean that you are trying to think about, from your own knowledge, how that issue could be resolved, how the things you have seen could be improved. You may also want to read what other people think about that idea. So if what didn't work so well was giving instructions, what do other persons, the other persons could be your colleagues. So you may want to talk to your colleagues to ask them this particular, maybe the teaching of grammar, which is a bone of contention in my own context. This particular grammar lesson, when you teach it in your class, how do your learners react? What do you do? How do you deal with this difficulty? Um, So you may want to find out from colleagues. You may want to read some theories about teaching grammar. You may want to read some bit of literature about giving instructions. So depending on what you're looking at. And so that helps you to make an analysis. You can draw from your own knowledge or from other people's experiences and also from reading. And once you do that reading, then you get or ask colleagues, then you get some insights. Those insights are your learning experiences. So what have you learned from that conversation with a colleague? Did you pick something new from the colleague, from the reading? What new thing did you learn? You may want to make note of that. And based on what you have learned, so those will be your conclusions, then you may want to think, what am I going to do differently? And once you think about what you're going to do differently, then you need to enact. So what will be your action plan for doing that thing differently? What are you going to do first? What will you do next? So what will be the steps? Because you're not just going to do everything at once. What exactly do you want to do? And how are you going to be doing it? And for how long will you be doing it? And how will you be monitoring to see whether it's being impactful positively or maybe not really, I don't want to say negatively, but rather not really as impactful as you imagine. And because you are implementing and thinking about what the impact of your change, then you are getting new events and something new comes up, a new situation comes up, and you start reflecting, and that's why we say it becomes a cycle of improvement. So you implement and then you look to see whether your plan, your implementation plan is impactful. If yes, how do you know? What other new situation has come up from that observation? Can you describe it? Can you share your feelings about it? Evaluate it again, make some analysis, talk to people, draw some lessons, and make a new action plan. And so as you run through those bits, frequently or constantly, then you keep improving your teaching practice. So just looking at the chat quickly to see if there is any message. Okay, yeah, so it's just about it helps update our methods. Well done. So this is a six-step reflection process which JIPS proposes. There are, of course, different processes, but I think this one is simple enough for us to follow without feeling overwhelmed. And of course, we could engage in this process either individually or with a group of supportive peers. So you may want to engage with supportive peers or maybe just in your own corner. And so my question is going to be, would you want to engage in in this process individually or in a group? Please tell me in the chat. Okay. So I see Ratabile individually, iPhone in groups or pairs. That's wonderful. Yeah, in groups or pairs, individually. Khadija says individually. Elise Nanga says individually. Nabil says for sustainable practice, I prefer individual. Masamba says in a group. Wonderful. It's very easy to say just individually or in a group. But why? Obiru says individually because I am the only one who understands what I did and what went wrong. Great, lovely. So tell me why individually? Why do you think, what would be some of the potential benefits of reflecting on your own, of going through that reflective process on your own? Yeah, I think Umbiru already says individually because I am the only one who understands what I did. So trying, I'm sure something is shedding me from reading the rest and where I went wrong, great. So please tell me. I know Elsie said she would like to engage in reflection individually. So, what are some of the potential benefits? Khadija also mentioned individually, Ratabile individually. So, please tell us what are some of the potential benefits of engaging in reflective practice individually. Okay. So I've got this interesting answer from Ratabile who says, I cannot lie to myself. I'll be honest about my weaknesses. Great. Elsie says, sometimes people may not be readily available to join me to reflect. And of course, I agree with you that that's a challenge. Nabil says, okay, I think Nabil is on the other side of of the coin. So we are going to come to Nabil in a while. And why those who are thinking about reflecting individually are talking about the potential benefits of reflecting individually? Let me also ask those who think about reflecting in a group. What are the potential benefits? So Nabil says, by three methods, we may learn wisdom. First, by reflection, which is nobler. Second, by imitation. Okay, so maybe it's just talking about the various methods of learning wisdom. But maybe I would like to know why you think reflecting in a group it's better for you. Okay. Kingsley says individually and in a group, so it's 50-50. And he says, as a group, he is able to tap from others. And as an individual, he's able to do a self-analysis, which is great. Umbiru says, group reflection can employ many opinions that might not reflect the exact methodology that was used. One might not know why I follow the way, though it can bring new ideas. So I don't know. Okay, yeah, so Ombiru is midway, thinking, oh, maybe reflecting a group might derail me a bit. And sometimes it can also help her to gain new ideas. So 50-50, that's great. Okay, but some says reflecting in a group will enable him to see things that will enable others to see things he couldn't see on his own. And of course, that's also a very great idea. So let's talk about why reflecting in a group might work better for people in our context who are already, teachers are already overloaded and overwhelmed, many large classes and heavy workload. So first of all, reflecting in a group means that you are sharing responsibilities, and that means that many hands do light work. So it reduces the possibility of overload and potential burnout. Just as Masamba did mention, we could easily ignore or dismiss something as unimportant when we reflect alone or in isolation. So, reflecting with others perhaps will help us to broaden our field of understanding, so enabling us to see from other people's point of views, which will mean that we are not missing out on anything. And also reflecting in a group means I'm learning from you and you're learning from me. And so we build that synergy of expertise. So these are some of the reasons why reflecting in a group might work better. And of course, reflecting individually, it's not to be dismissed, especially if that's the option that works for you or that's available to you. But now let's talk about the tools we could use, whether we are reflecting as individuals or as a group of supportive peers. What reflective tools can we use? So I'd like you to tell me quickly in the chat some of the tools you have used to reflect on your teaching practice. You may just list them with no explanation. If there's a tool you have used, please share in the chat. Great, so I see the first answer coming through. Elsie, we use questionnaires to reflect. That's great. Elsie uses questionnaires. Um, maybe uses observation. Lovely. Maybe uses AI. That's also valid in this age of AI in language education. Okay, great. So there are a number of tools we could use, such as the ones you mentioned. So for the sake of time, I'm going to run through some of the tools. So the first one, which is very good if you're reflecting alone, it's by writing. So keeping a journal. That's because it helps you to be able to clarify your beliefs. When you write, you're able to describe the event well and your feelings. And so you can do that by using a pen and paper. So manually, you can also do it by typing, and of course, the dictate function on Microsoft Word. It's a really great tool. And if you're reflecting collaboratively using a journal, you can share a Google Doc where everyone types in their ideas on a particular subject of reflection. The advantage of keeping a journal is that it can be revisited at any point in your career. I have the English Connects teaching, the English Connects a master trainer journal, which I started developing in 2019 till date. And it's really an interesting tool for me. It's over 100 pages now. It's difficult to keep it, but it summarizes many things for me, and I can keep going back to those notes throughout my career. So that will be an advantage of keeping the journal, especially if you're doing it digitally. So keeping a Word document or sharing a Google Doc with supportive peers. Another thing you can do, another tool you can use, it's recordings. And you may decide to do just audio or video recordings. Recordings are particularly great, especially if you are reflecting in a group, because they provide authentic data. So it makes the reflection evidence-based. So if I say that at the 50th minute, Anestin said, then we can actually verify that. So it's evidence-based. We can support our thoughts, our feelings, our ideas, our suggestions with episodes from the recordings, which makes the feedback more acceptable. But of course, it's challenging. I teach English for 2 hours in my class. So it's challenging for me to record a 2 hour session and then go back and watch all of that. So I may want to pick what specific thing I'm looking at in my reflection. And then I'm going to record key moments of that specific aspect, not the entire lesson. So you don't want to make it boring and unbearable or very heavy for you. So record just key moments that are related to the aspect on which you're reflecting. And then once you have the recording, so very short episodes, you could watch it alone or with peers and then do an analysis of the recordings for your reflection. And when you're watching, to not just watch, listen to the words, you need to actually watch the entire recording. So you're watching the body language, you're watching pacing, clarity, students' reaction, your own reaction, your voice. So you're looking at all of those elements of communication, especially the non-verbal ones. They send a powerful signal to how learners react to what you are saying, or even how learners understand what you're saying based on how you say it, not the words you used to say it. And then you may also pay attention to blind spots within the recording. And all of those could be used for your analysis. An advantage of using recordings for group reflection is that it helps to deal with problems of availability, which Elsie did raise. So all the teachers do not need to be in the same space at the same time looking at the same thing. It could be shared with leveraging technology via WhatsApp, via Google Drive, with supportive peers to watch at their convenience, and then feedback maybe through a Google Doc, which will be helpful for the teacher in question. And then, just as I mentioned, feedback is usually more acceptable because it's based on evidence. We can actually quote the episodes, which makes it relatable. Another tool we could use to reflect is students' feedback. Yeah, and Elsie did mention questionnaires, so, which could be linked to student feedback. It's not just about what the students say, but also what they do not say. So you may want to pay attention to what they say by giving them questionnaires and surveys, because their opinions are a valuable perspective to our reflection. And you may want to, especially for critical incidents, the learners may understand the classroom context better than you, the teacher, do. And so talking to the learners will be helpful in your reflection. So you could use different methods. So maybe exit tickets, pool, questionnaires, surveys, quick reflections. You may decide to organize focus group discussions where you ask questions and listen to the learners talk and record what they say. And you could use all of this information to improve your teaching practice. And a fourth tool we could use, and I think it's maybe Wood mentioned, it's observation. And of course, in peer observation would mean I watch your lesson and then you watch my own lesson also, and we give each other's feedback. It's always good to have a third party's view in your class. So I would encourage us to invite colleagues to observe us in action. I know some people might be raising a few questions about peer observation, but let's look at how we can make peer observation constructive, because people might be saying, what if the colleague comes to run down my lesson? But we can make it constructive by discussing the focus of the observation. What are you coming to my class to observe? We need to discuss that, because you will not be observing the entire lesson. You will not be looking at everything. What do I want you to observe? It should be the focus of our reflection. So maybe I want you to observe how I monitor. So your feedback will focus just on that, or how I give instructions. Um, so, and it's good to focus just on one area. Taking too many areas, you cannot be looking at learners' engagement or the teacher's questioning techniques at the same time. That's too broad and overwhelming, and it will make the reflective stage less efficient. So you want to pick a small key area and focus just on that area. And then it's good to also have a checklist and discuss that checklist. So generally, when I do invite colleagues to my class, I give them an observation checklist. The checklist says what I want them to observe, and then I have questions. Yes, sometimes multiple choice, sometimes yes or no, sometimes for short answers, and then sometimes they have to provide their opinion. And we sit and we discuss the observation checklist and ensure that we have a common understanding of the observation checklist and agree before we move into the class, so that it helps to focus the observation, but most importantly, the post-observation conference, which is going to be the reflection on the teaching. And of course, you do not just want to observe, fill the checklist and disappear. Say, Anestin, I dropped the checklist on your decks. So it will be worthwhile to sit and reflect and share ideas together to be able to improve the teaching. And then a fit tool we could leverage is lesson study. This is really great for a context like mine, where there are many large campuses, many streams for the same level. So you could have 10 streams of grade 7. So it's ideal for teachers who teach at the same levels and perhaps at this in the same institution, because they could sit together and plan a lesson, and then perhaps observe the first teacher who is so the first person to teach that lesson that week, teach the lesson, and then after they observe and then they provide they record evidence of what worked and did not work, and then they can sit back after the first lesson and rediscuss with the focus on the lesson, not on the person who delivered the lesson. They focus on the lesson, not the person who delivered the lesson. And the goal here will be to improve the lesson before the others move on to teach that same lesson in their own classrooms. So I love lesson study because it helps us to reflect before the lesson and also after the lesson. So it's both useful for pre for sharing, for reflective dialoguing before and after the lesson. And a seat tool which I'm very passionate about is cooperative development. So cooperative development is just a dialogic process where a group sits to reflect on their professional practice. In this process, we have two groups of persons. So they could be, I said two groups of persons because there might be more than one person in each category. But the emphasis is on being non-judgmental, rather supportive, and encouraging active listening. So I said in cooperative development, we have two groups of persons. So one group could be made up of the speaker. So generally, the speaker will be one person, the person on the hot seat, who shares the issue, the experience, the challenge, a critical incident in their classroom. And then the other group will be made up of understanders. So they will listen, they will probe, they will help the speaker to clarify their thought. Their goal is to help the speaker to generate their own insights, not to give the teacher a way out. And so there needs to be some form of equality between the parties. So everybody is a learner and a contributor. It's not the understanders teaching the speaker what to do. It needs to be non-judgmental. Remember that as an understander, you are ensuring that the reflection is developmental, not evaluative. And then so you're helping the speaker to clarify their thoughts, not to impose any solutions. And you, through the questions, the probing questions, you help them to articulate their thoughts more actively. So the teachers are autonomous in cooperative development because they generate their own insights. You do not tell them what to do. And it's a structured exploration. So it needs to be systematic and it's meant to support teachers, especially in the same working, the teachers working in the same institution. Of course, it could also be done across institution. So you want to analyze things that happen, why it happened, and how changes could be made. And because you're talking about changes, then you think about the action. What are the actions the action steps that can be taken to make your teaching more practical and impactful? So, which of these tools are you willing to try in your own classroom? There were a few messages. I'll just be looking. Okay. Yeah, Kingsley says we can do panel teaching. This is when colleagues, yeah, panel teaching yeah, it's very close to lesson study. So well done. Now, whichever idea you choose to implement, it should be what works for you. That will be my top recommendation. Try to do what works for you, not just something might be really challenging for you. Please do not go for it. What works for you, go for it. So remember that the goal is to improve our teaching practice, not to get overwhelmed, not to burn out in the process. And so, how can we avoid burnout while improving our practice? Because we need to keep improving. It needs to be a cycle of improvement. If you do it the first time and you feel overwhelmed, then there is an issue. So, some top tips to help you is keep it simple. So, small and regular consistency is better than big. So, think about a small focus, reflect on that one, finish, and then take another very little tiny bit. Make sure your goals are smart for your reflective session. So think about something that is very specific, an exact area you want to reflect on. Is it student engagement in the course of the lesson? Is it the questioning techniques? Is it the act of giving instructions? Is it the feedback or the monitoring? Is it what is it the eliciting methods? So what do you want to focus on? Something very small for each section. So saying that you're going to reflect on your whole grammar lesson, the whole grammar lesson you taught today, which was perhaps conditionals, it's going to be overwhelming because I'm wondering which aspect of it will you be looking at? Remember we said when you are observing your class, you are watching even the recording, you need to watch the verbal and the non-verbal elements in the classroom. So looking at it at an entire lesson will be really overwhelming. So I want to reflect on my lesson planning. So identify why timing often overruns. So time management. And I'm trying to look at how I plan and how timing overruns when I deliver. What are the issues? Think about how you will know that your reflection is effective. What will be how will you measure progress? So maybe I want to record 3 reflections and track whether my timing has improved. So you need to have a measure to show that your reflection is effective. And then make sure that your goals are things that are within your reach and within your workload. You cannot be looking at the whole curriculum, how to change the English language teaching curriculum for technical schools in Cameroon. That's something that is largely within my reach. I've been teaching in technical schools for a very long time, and there is no way I can do that sitting in my little classroom. I'm not at the policy level. And even if I'm at the policy level, it would still be a wrong approach for me to think I can reflect all alone and in an academic year on how to change that entire curriculum. So think about what you can do within your classroom, within your context, with your means, so that's something that is realistic for you. So you see, I'm dedicating just 15 minutes at the end of the class for my reflection time. I'm not going to go above 15 minutes. And so my focus needs to be very, very tiny to fit into this 15 minutes. And then it needs to be relevant. So why are you doing this? Because you want to keep improving on your teaching practice. So what is your professional goal for this term, for this semester or this academic year? So you need to align your reflections to suit those professional goals. So this academic year, I'm looking at how to strengthen my classroom management overall. But you see, at this specific time, this term, I am paying attention just to timing and overruns. So just time management. But classroom management it's a whole lot. So I'll be doing that bit by bit from September till May. I've had the time to strengthen my classroom management by looking at different little aspects of classroom management. So I can't do that in one session. It's not possible. Okay. And then you need to give yourself a deadline, a time when you're going to review to see if you have made progress or not made any progress. So by the end of the term, since I'm working on time management and lesson timing overruns, at the end of this term, I will review my reflection journal to identify progress and then set new goals that will still fit into my classroom management objective for the year. So SMART goals will help you not just to think about what went well, but to improve on your practice. And of course, once you reflect, you need to act. If you just reflect and then say, okay, It's not enough. What are you going to do differently? And remember that you are not at the court, it's not a court session. You're not being judged. So avoid being judgmental towards yourself and towards others. If you're working on your own, even avoid judging yourself. It's not an assessment, it's an improvement practice. So, and do not only think about fixing problems, celebrate successes too. You've made a little progress. Are you happy about it? Was there a change? Did your learners feel happy? You want to celebrate that success, as little as it may sound. And then again, I said it at the beginning, make it practical. Use the tool that works for you, for your context, for looking at your classroom reality. Two, if you can do it individually, if working individually works for you, that's great. If you can work with two, three persons, excellent. If you are using just a reflective journal, fine. If you can use cooperative development, wonderful. So make it practical so that you don't burn out in the process. So thank you, everyone. And these are a few references we did look at. Thank you once again for actively participating. And you can find me here. Blessing, I'm open for questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anestin. That was really wonderful. Talking about reflective practices. I'm sure everyone here has gained a couple of things. I can't find any question in the chat. I've also been thinking about a question, but each time a question comes to my mind, you answer the question. you have you have actually touched every part of this topic, and I'm sure that everyone here is fully satisfied. If you have any questions, no questions, I can see somebody say no question but contribution. Feel free to type it in the chat before we round up this session. You've done a wonderful job, and I can see thank you, all thanks to you, and so many appreciations coming in the chat. Thank you so very much, Ernestine, for this
Yeah,
wonderful.
thank you, Blessing. You're welcome. So I
Yeah,
want to thank the colleagues for their active participation and for their engagement in this session. Thank you for joining and for staying very active.
yeah, amazing. Yes, they've been so wonderful with all the chat buzzing with contributions. Thank you so much for that. And this is just the best time to share the Africa ELTA PD feedback form, which I have dropped in the chat. I'm going to drop it again now. So we're talking about reflective practices. So I think we should start right away. So this
Yeah.
is the link to our feedback form, and we would like to hear from you concerning Africa ELTA professional development, specifically our webinars on Zoom, on WhatsApp, and on Telegram. So kindly fill out the form. We hope to hear from you, of course, because we want to improve, because that is what reflective practices is all about. Yes, for improvements. And thank you so much again, Ernestine. Thank you for a perfect delivery, I must say, of this very sensitive topic that many teachers, I would say, like to shy away from. The truth is, I read the chat where somebody said, I think that was Madam President, our immediate past president, that says you cannot lie to yourself. But I've seen many teachers lie to themselves. As a school leader, yes, I've been opportune to give feedback to teachers, and you see teachers trying to defend, when you point out some loopholes, they try to defend, so I see some people say that they prefer to, do the individual reflection themselves, and but sometimes you need a second eye, you need someone to also look into some of these things. And like you said, it's not a court case, nobody is slicing you. It's just for the purpose of improvement. Everybody wants to improve. Africa ELTA webinar, we want to improve in the PD departments. That is why we are sending you the feedback form. Yeah, so it's not a do or die affair, but it's just for the cause of improvements. Thank you, and thank you so much, Ernestine, once again, for your time with us.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. I see a very intriguing question in the chat. I think someone with iPhone is saying blessing. I would like to know what is the difference between collaboration and cooperative or and cooperation. That's a really challenging question, but I'm going to attempt an answer which may not be satisfactory. Okay, so I would say cooperation will involve a team working in parallel. So they are sharing information, and the goal is to support each other to achieve their individual goals. So I have my goal, Blessing has her goal, and we are working as a team. I'm supporting Blessing to achieve her goal, and Blessing is supporting me to achieve my goal. So we are working collaboratively, sharing information, supporting each other to achieve our separate goals. And that's the role of cooperative development. Because in cooperative development, when I am the speaker, it means I'm on the hot seat. Blessing is the understander. Blessing will be supporting me to gain insight into my own teaching by probing and questioning me and helping me to expand my horizon without giving me solutions to my problems. So she's helping me to search for answers within me. And where I do not find the answers immediately, that's to Blessings, questions, probings, and um, um, and guidance. Maybe I get some readings. I may be able to go and read more about my focus, and that will help me to be able to resolve my puzzle to achieve my individual goal, which could be timing overruns. Now, blessing,
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
Blessing has got another goal, which perhaps is giving instructions. When she's a speaker, she's now on the hot seat and I'm the understander, and I'll be doing the same thing, probing, guiding, and pushing Blessing to gain insight, a deeper understanding, and perhaps read more to find solutions to our own. So that will be cooperation, and that's the format of cooperative development. Collaboration means that we have a common goal. So in collaboration, Blessing and I, we are doing the same thing. So we are doing the art of giving instruction, looking at how we give instructions and how the quality of our instruction on learners' performance. Are we does this, the way we give instruction impact learners' performance negatively or positively? And then we are collaborating and jointly looking for solutions to this common problem. I think that's the distinction I would make between the two.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. You really did that,
Welcome.
explicitly. Thank you so much. That's such a great illustration that you have used there. And I want to appreciate Catherine for your comments as well. Collaborations is dividing activities to individuals and doing them to achieve a common goal of a group. While
Yeah.
cooperation means doing an activity together. Thank you so very much. It's been so wonderful having you all in this webinar. Such an interesting webinar. Do not miss next month's webinar. It's going to be another intriguing moment. You don't want to miss it. So I look forward to seeing you all. Thank you again, Anestin, for the time well spent with us. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, esteemed board members, Africa ELTA founder. I see you, Dr. Okonefiong. I see you, our past president, our current president, for hosting this event. Thank you, everyone. Members of the board, I see you all. Thank you. And I also have Dancing Kimathi here, a member of the PD committee. Thank you so much. I appreciate your presence and your active participation. Do have a beautiful evening and see you in our next webinar. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.